Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special sit-down called Meet the Creator. I recently spoke with Sophie Jamison, CEO of Lightning Media and social strategist at Made by Gather. Sophie was previously the Chief TikTok Officer at Made by Gather and at Nerf. If you missed me on the keynote earlier today, I'm Jasmine Enberg, and I'm a principal analyst here at EMARKETER. In the next 15 minutes or so, Sophie and I are going to talk about how brands can optimize their creator partnerships. Sophie, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Chief TikTok Officer is a somewhat unusual but very attention-grabbing title. Can you tell me how you got into this role and what a Chief TikTok Officer does?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely an interesting title. It started with me making content on TikTok just for my own personal channel. I love Nerf blasters right behind me here. So when the pandemic hit and I had really nothing to do, I said, let's make some videos and kind of see what happens. Over about a year, I gained over 1 million followers, and that's when Nerf reached out and put out this job listing for the world's first chief TikTok officer. I knew that I had to apply for that position. Application was just to make a TikTok video, and then I got the role. It was supposed to be a 3 month position, temporary, but it ended up being almost 2 years. That role, it's is what it sounds like a bit, making content primarily for TikTok. But behind the scenes, it's also influencer management, campaign building, bidding optimization, working with the entire team to make sure that we prioritize hero products in content, seasonal trends, and then relaying that information back to the team so that they feel like there is an ROI on the content that we're creating.
So, the role is obviously more than just TikTok, but I imagine that TikTok plays a big part in it. How would your role change in a world without TikTok?
It's a great question. It's definitely been keeping me up at nights recently, but fortunately, it's that attention grabbing title is kind of misleading because it is all of social. It's short form content creation across social platforms. So if TikTok goes away, there's Instagram Reels, there's YouTube Shorts, there's a new app that will take its place, and it's being able to create attention grabbing content that gets across a message for the brand, not as much as it is really understanding the ins and outs of one social platform. It's understanding the audience and how to make the content and find the right influencers. So it is pretty cross applicable across platforms.
Mm-hmm. So Nerf and Made by Gather, where you are now, are obviously two very different brands, two very different products with what I imagine are very, very different audiences.
Yeah.
What do you think the fact that you've been chief TikTok officer for both of these companies says about the role of social media and creators in particular in marketing strategies today?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a change for sure, blasters to toasters. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding that audience and understanding what type of content they want to see. So it's really going in. It's almost like taking a class and just studying these people. Who are the people that are searching for your products and who's purchasing them? And content creators understand how to make content for an audience. There's no reason why they can't then dissect a different audience and create content for that audience. So it's about being very flexible and really just understanding what's resonating and kind of just testing and errors. If a piece of content doesn't work, stop doing it. We have these content pillars. Some are way more successful than others and they're worth pursuing, but making sure that you have differentiative content across that platform and then kind of seeing which one sticks and which ones don't, growing and evolving every day.
Mm. So speaking of growing and evolving every day, you also have your own brand, Sophie Lightning, which has over 2.1 million followers on TikTok, and you also have an audience in the tens of thousands on Instagram and YouTube. How are you monetizing your personal brand, and how do you balance that with your work at Made by Gather?
Fortunately, there's this great, I'm learning at one place that I can then apply it into the next place. So it actually gives me really valuable insight of being a creator and then the one working with the creators. The relationships that I have with creators from the Made by Gather side are very special. I understand what good content looks like, so I don't send them briefs. We just let them go for it. They know what they're doing, so we're going to let them do it. It's something that a lot of brands aren't doing right now. And then for me managing this, so I do consulting on the side and of course all this content creation and brand deals. It's just time management, clock out at 5 of one job, clock into the next job at 5:01. And really just checking in with myself every day, making sure that I'm still enjoying what I'm doing, which I am. I still love Nerf blasters at the end of the day. And I love making that content. So I'm very fortunate that I can balance those things and that they help one another very well.
Giving up that creative control, though, is very difficult for a lot of brands still. And I think it's one of the reasons that many brands are still kind of skeptical of creator marketing or influencer marketing. How are you sort of trying to bridge that gap? What would you say to that?
This is something I'm very passionate about because I've seen it be successful and it can be some of the best marketing campaigns in history, the best ROIs. When creators know what they're doing, and I think that brands need to understand and respect that, it's totally fair to send them guidelines, don't say this word, follow our legal language. That's completely applicable. But they are the creators. It's in their name. So let them create, let them do what they know how to do. They send something back, you can send edits or revisions, but it's really this level of just kind of going against everything that you've ever known in marketing and giving them the control and the freedom to do it because they've proven that they can do it. And I think that brands forget that. If they have X amount of followers, they know what they're doing and they can do it. So let them do it for you.
Do you have an example of a successful campaign that you'd be able to share with us?
Ooh.
Or a successful piece of content or something that stood out to you recently?
I think, that's a great question. I mean, initially, like I was the perfect fit for this Nerf position. That was originally, a PR marketing move. So it's finding those people that are already in that community and already have a fan base regarding your product. So a lot of what we're doing at Made by Gather right now is finding these people. They might be micro influencers, but if they're already talking about air fryer recipes, it makes complete sense for me to send them an air fryer and have them make that content for both of our channels. That's one of those examples.
So you and I have talked a bit before about the need for this symbiotic relationship between brands and creators. Besides, not giving up creative control and letting creators do their thing, what other mistakes are brands making when they're working with creators?
Oh, so many. How much time do we have? No. I think the first thing is they just look at follower count or vanity metrics, and they say, okay, this person has 1 million followers, we'll pay them this amount, and it will work. And that's just, you can't fit a circle into a square type of shape. Sometimes those smaller creators, like I was saying, that already have that niche community are a much better use of that time and money. So it's not always just, the biggest person on the app. That's not always the most successful campaigns. And yes, definitely the creative control is a huge one. And I think just having conversations with the creators and instead of just saying, here's an air fryer, make a video, say, here's the air fryer, here's why we're passionate about it, here's what makes it different, here's why people are going to sell it, here's its point of parity in the aisle. So they can really understand that product and then have a better implementation into their content. Where I think a lot of times brands are just like, here's the product, here's the brief, go. Whereas a creator, it's actually helpful to know the marketing strategy, the product information, and work with the brand. The last thing I'll say too is long-term relationships are always better. So consistent pieces of content with the creator. My favorite brand deal that I personally have right now is just for a year, 15 pieces of content, super organic. That is what is going to perform well, and that's what's going to keep the creators and the brands happy.
Absolutely. And that's something that I've been seeing a lot in my research too, that these longer term relationships tend to perform much better. The problem with that, though, and something that we're seeing is that as the market has become saturated with creators, I mean, there's so many people looking to monetize their content, particularly through brand deals. The competition is really fierce because you're seeing these marketers prioritize longer term relationships, and many of them are already in those relationships, meaning that there's fewer brand deals to go around. So let's talk about the flip side of the question I just asked you, which is what mistakes are creators then making when they're trying to score a brand deal or work with a brand?
Yeah. Once again, how much time do we have? I think the first and foremost is finding brands that they want to work with that don't fit into their content. If you have a community, unless you're a super broad creator, which really most are not, you have this niche community and there's products that are going to fit well into your content. You don't want to force it. I think that that's the biggest thing. If I'm talking about Nerf blasters every day, that makes complete sense. It would not make sense for me to then try to sell like leggings tomorrow. That just doesn't work. So as a creator, it's not always about the money. It's also about this relationship that you have with your community. It's the most important thing. That is why you are successful. So you do not want to tarnish or damage that in any way. Working with brands that are reputable, products that you actually like. I know it can be really hard to turn down a great offer, but long term, that is the best decision that you can make. There were some brand deals I took 4 years ago that I honestly really regret because they just didn't fit with the content. But when, it's your first couple of emails, you get so excited about it that you kind of miss the bigger picture. And then just basic stuff, be responsive, hit the deadlines, understand that there's human beings on both sides of this. And like for me on the Made by Gather side, my success is measured by your piece of content. So kind of understand that and value it. It's not just a paycheck. It's also like something that could grow into a larger relationship. It's also measuring someone else's success and really just put in the time and the effort. Because that's how you're going to get more of them. If you just say it's a one piece of content, give me the money, work on it for 5 minutes, it's not sustainable.
So you are probably the most high-profile example of brands bringing creators in-house, right? And helping them with their strategy. Do you think that this is something we're going to continue seeing? And what overall would you say is the value of that? Should every company have a chief TikTok officer?
So I think that this will continue to become more popular. I don't think it's going to be chief TikTok officer because like it is kind of just a media grab, and it doesn't fully explain or encapsulate what I do. But having a creator come in-house, whether it's just to create content or it is to work with influencers or do all these other things, it's good for everybody. It gives the creator experience. You can't make content for the rest of your life. There's very few people who can do that successfully. So if you can then go internally and get that experience and that resume building, it's incredible for you. And then on the flip side, for the brand, it's great to have someone come in, kind of teach, the internal employees who don't have that experience. It's just very symbiotic relationship that I think needs to be way more commonplace. And I think it's a complete missed opportunity. It's going to be table stakes in the next 5 years. It's going to be something that we see, I feel like, in almost every brand that's successful on social. Is utilizing a creator and having them come in and share. They've done it. They've accomplished it. They have the experience and they can share it with your team and help you be successful.
And that's such a good point, right? There's benefits to this for both parties, right? For the creator and for the brand. And going back to what we were talking about before with, having fewer new deals on the table for creators when there's so many of them. One of the other things that we've been studying a lot is how creator monetization tactics are changing. So a lot of these alternative revenue streams are gaining steam, whether that's things like tipping or merchandising or, taking a position at a brand and working for them. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I wanted to end talking a little bit about advice for marketers. So what is one piece of advice that you would give a brand as they're thinking about optimizing their creator strategies today?
It's a great question. I think that the best answer I can give is to approach with the most open mind and kind of take almost everything that you've learned in college and kind of throw it out the window and just sit down and really recognize what creators are doing and how they're successful at it. And then respecting them and saying, let's take them internally. Let's work with them. Let's utilize them. And not seeing creators as this kind of just throw money at them, let them do their thing, but much more of a relationship. And also taking on new talent who might be younger and respecting that, once again, they know what they're doing. I think that we're going to see much younger marketing teams. That's not a bad thing. There will still be, of course, places for other people as well. But I think we're going to see a lot of creators go through this funnel to quite high up on marketing teams. I think that that's a good change. And that's something that you have to be open-minded and willing to work with.
So one more thing, just because I agree that brands do have to be open-minded and, let creators do their thing. What happens when something goes wrong? Because it does still happen. What would you then say to marketers? How do you solve for that?
Yeah, I mean, just applies to life. Learn from it, grow from it. Maybe it's you don't work with that creator ever again. Maybe it's you say, oh, this type of content doesn't work. Hopefully, it's not something super large. So still being somewhat risk adverse when it comes to certain things, still including your legal team. Don't go do, the most absolute pieces of content, crazy pieces of content just because you see other brands doing it. Still make sure that you're working as a part of the team. And then yeah, just really learning from those mistakes and recognizing that that is going to happen and it is okay.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds a little bit like mitigating that risk beforehand, learning from mistakes if they happen, and also just making sure that you stay true to your brand, no matter what it is that you're doing.
That was a perfect recap. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie. This was so fantastic. We really appreciate it. Now it's over to you, Susie and Jeremy.